Serenbe is a place where people live, work, learn, and play in celebration of life's beauty. And we're here to share the stories that connect residents and guests to each other and to nature. This is Serenbe Stories. Today, we're talking with freelance journalist Katie Kelly Bell, who has been writing about food, wine, and travel for the past 15 years. While the pandemic has changed how she's been able to cover destinations, she describes herself as a pragmatic optimist who envisions travel coming back little by little over the coming months. In this episode, we talk about how we'll be able to travel, rediscovering your own backyard this summer, and the 3 S's of what people will want when travel opportunities do come back. But first, Serenbe Stories is brought to you by the Inn at Serenbe. The Inn is nestled in the rolling countryside of bucolic Serenbe, where guests can walk on the 15 miles of trails through preserved forest land, the wildflower meadow, and the animal village. You can relax by the pool, hot tub, or in rocking chairs on the wraparound porch, play on the croquet lawn, swings, and in-ground trampolines. Connect with nature and each other, all while staying in luxurious rooms on the Inn grounds or within the community of Serenbe. Book your stay today at serenbeinn.com. So I want to welcome everybody back today. Today we have Katie Kelly Bell, who is a freelance journalist and who has been to Serenbe numerous times. She wrote a really lovely article, a travel article in Forbes. I think it was 2018. And Katie's experience bridges print, digital, television. She's co-authored a book about Ireland travel, senior editor at the Wine Report that I want to hear all about, and as well as CNN's Airport Channel. She lives here in Atlanta with her 3 kids and her husband. Well, a couple of them are out of school, but they're all back now during COVID. And she enjoys playing tennis. Katie, thank you so much for being with us today. And welcome to Serenbe Stories.
I am delighted to be here. It's just great to see all of you.
Hi, Katie. Glad you joined our conversation today.
I'm excited. There's a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about. The travel industry is in a bit of disarray right now. And when you came to us originally, you popped in, I want to say in 2018 to do a story. And I think you came with your daughter and a good friend. But tell us just a little quickly, like you've lived in Atlanta for a number of years. You've been in the South for a while. Did you know about Serenbe before, or how did you discover it before we had you down?
I have known about Serenbe probably since the beginning because I have been writing about the wine and food scene in Atlanta for a long time. So I knew Steve through that and his tremendous success in that area. You know, and when he and his wife kind of migrated and started the Serenbe project, everybody was honestly a little bit of head scratching and sort of wondering what this was going to be. And, you know, really, I mean, you were so far ahead of your time in that. I grew up going to the woods every weekend. My father was an Irish farm boy. So when he moved to America, he wanted a cabin in the woods so he could have his farm life. So I had that in my DNA. So I understood what you were doing with Serenbe. I was like, oh, I kind of get that. But there were a lot of people who just wondered, why are you literally just putting a place in the middle of nowhere? What's that about? And so I personally just have loved watching the trajectory of Serenbe because it has really unfolded into this incredible thing that just, attracts people from all over, really probably the world at this point. It's something that I understood as a child everyone needs, but I think you saw that before everybody else. And now, of course, looking back, everyone's like, oh, it's a great idea. It makes total sense. But, it was definitely, and, it was certainly at the time, a question for a lot of people.
Yes, everyone thought we were totally crazy.
Yeah. I'm sure I didn't think you were crazy, but I heard it. I heard the buzz. Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was used to that because when I was a believer in Midtown Atlanta in the 70s, everyone thought that was crazy too. And it's fun to read some of the feasibility studies now, this many years later, that we're so wrong.
Yeah. And look at Midtown; it's thriving. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the placemaking of Midtown, whether that's the park as a destination or now the Beltline, with all the culinary and hotels sort of abutting right up to that, that really is what has been incredible about Serenbe is having it be a destination as well as a place to live. When you came, I think you were able to come see theater. which unfortunately is on hiatus right now.
Yeah.
And this is way before Motto hadn't happened. So
Right.
Steve was taking you around, and tell us the story about the golf cart.
So
if you remember.
Yeah, we had a fabulous tour, and it was a breathtaking tour because I really had left Serenbe. The prior trip was, sort of a small, quaint neighborhood here and there, and then the inn. And on this golf cart tour, it was just extravagant what was happening. The D'Amato development, the Mado, is it Mado?
Motto
Development,
yeah.
Motto, all the wellness you were putting in place, the pool, which of course on the golf cart tour, we did get stuck in the mud by the pool. So we had to get extricated. But it was, it took my breath away just seeing how it had really transformed. I felt like that was the tipping point when I was going around that tour with you, seeing everything that was happening.
And when were you last here? Was that the last you were here?
So that tour with you, and then my husband and I came back about 6 months later and just had lunch at the Hill. And I took him around and showed him everything you showed me and sort of talked to him about what you were talking about with wellness and just the whole living concept and how you can have sort of convivial, neighborly living, but then still be in the forest all the time and not feel isolated. And, that there was just like the medical benefit of that isn't really, that's not what they talk about in science. It's just not that piece. But so we both loved it. We had a great lunch and said, well, our nest is almost empty, so we don't know where we want to land, and maybe it would be Serenbe. That still hasn't been decided, and we're, exploring a lot of things, but everything we explore has to have a nature contingent.
Well, do come see us because a lot's happened since then.
I can only, and you've actually recruited my favorite physical therapist, Kay.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry, Kate. Yes. Kate. Yeah. Yes. She is the one person who got my husband's back to zero. And, I was not surprised that you found her because really the best go to Serenbe. So
we're finding that they're literally coming from all over, and it's fun to see that happening.
Yeah.
And you no longer will get stuck by the pool. It's
the mud's gone.
Now you can swim in it. Yes.
Exciting.
And so your daughter, I know your youngest is 17 years old. So so you have a few years to sort of to think about that. But tell us how, I know that you grew up in Missouri and went to school in Nashville. So you've really been in the South for a number of years, but tell us a little bit about your trajectory as a writer, a journalist, how you got into it, and then how you got into sort of the travel, food and wine side.
So that, when I graduated from Vanderbilt, I got a master's in teaching, and I moved to Atlanta because I got an offer to teach fifth grade, which is my favorite grade. And I taught school for 6 or 7 years, got married, taught some more, and then got pregnant and decided to stay home because I thought, that would be the better role for me. I was too much of a control freak to let anyone else be in charge of my child. So I stayed home, and after about 18 months started to lose my mind. And I actually had a neighbor, because I love wine and I talk about wine all the time. And I had a reputation in the neighborhood for being kind of a wine freak. And a neighbor said to me, oh, you should write for the Wine Report. They're always looking for writers. And this was in the 90s when media was just blowing up. I mean, they couldn't find a writer. So there's a note of desperation to a lot of editors. I was lucky. My timing was perfect because I had no journalism degree. I just loved to write. I'd always written. I journaled my whole life. Writing was a form of therapy for me. So I thought, oh, wow, I could connect the dots and put wine that I love with writing. That's brilliant. So I harassed this editor who's Gil Coolers, and who is now the sommelier at the Piedmont Driving Club. And Gil became a good friend and agreed to give me an assignment. And, he took a risk on me, but I did a good job and we hit it off, and I created a portfolio. And then I just spent the next 2 years, listening into meeting other writers for coffee. I bought books on how to write, how to pitch. So that was back when you wrote a pitch out on a piece of paper and put it in an envelope and mailed it. I mean, can you imagine, right? And then, you followed up with phone calls. And so I just pitched everyone. I didn't know better. I didn't think, wow, I don't have any, I just was like, hey, these are my story ideas. And a good editor just wants a good idea. I mean, it's great if you have been writing for 100 years, but if you've got a good idea, And so I pitched Atlanta Magazine, and I made a great connection with an editor there, and she loved my story ideas, and we hit it off. And once I kind of got plugged into Atlanta Magazine and the Wine Report and started getting a steady diet of work, people started calling, and the doors started opening on their own. And then the more opportunities I had, the more incredible story ideas I would come across. And, I love wine, I love travel, but I'm not an expert. I'm just a good storyteller. I think that's what, that's what I love about writing, is I get to tell people stories. I love the human character. I love the humanity and everything. I think it's fascinating. So being able to tell stories that bring people to life, wine's kind of boring by itself, but it's much more fascinating when you talk about the winemaker who, likes to farm with a plow and why he thinks that way, or, the woman who started her own hotel and how she's doing that. And I don't know, those parts are just kind of build on themselves. So yeah, over time, literally through a lot of scrappy hustle and a lot of negative, being shot down, being told no, learn from your mistakes. I was able to, so I'm doing this for 15 years now.
And how has COVID impacted that? I mean, did you travel a lot, or, now obviously I know we're sort of out of shelter in place, but obviously not heading all over the country at this point. What's going on in the day-to-day for you?
That COVID has devastated my personal travel schedule. I mean, I had a trip to Sweden. I had a trip to Champagne. And I would travel probably every 4 to 6 weeks for about 4 or 5 days. So, that's been just gutted, which has been fine. I'm still here. I'm healthy. I have my family. Now, work for writers has really frozen up. I wouldn't say it's dried up, but I do think, most outlets are tightening up their budgets. They're not working with anyone but staff. Some of them are taking like Delta Sky's gone. They just folded up. They're no longer.
So sad. I know.
So I think we're starting to see a lot of that. And I do feel that the outlets that were kind of buoyed by this great economy, it's the way it goes. If you're just barely squeaking by, you're not really going to be there when it's over. So I do. And I actually have some journalist friends who are going in other careers. They just feel like they've been thinking about a switch, so now is the time. This is a bide your time and wait. But I think also, this is the job of everyone, but even a journalist, most of all, is you've got to be able to pivot and see where are people looking for content, technical writing, wellness and health writing. I got in contact with an interior designer who has more work than she knows what to do with and needs a writer to help with her project. So, I think if you can pivot and you can hustle, you'll do okay, but it's stressful. It's just stressful. And it's hard. It's hard to see, editors you love, have to tell people they're going to have to let them go. And, but I've seen this before. I mean, this business is, especially media, it's so subject to the whims of the economy in the world. And the weird thing is that engagement online is greater than it has ever been. People are reading more than ever, but the ad dollars aren't following. So,
right. Everybody's cut their ad budgets, but then, they're trying to pick it up with subscribers. But I even saw, I think it was yesterday, that the Atlantic Monthly had to cut staff. And then, Curb is gone, which is sort of a big loss, I think, for markets on real estate writing. It is going to be an interesting time. And I do think that, we actually had an interview with Ford Fry yesterday to talk about the restaurant industry. And I don't know if you felt this way, but I think we felt like Q4 last year and this first quarter before everything hit, it just felt like going gangbusters. Yeah. And the market was great, and the industry was great, and the economy was great, and then just halted. But I do think I'm such a Ford calls himself an optimist, right? Obviously, at his restaurant, and I'm a very hopeful person too. So I think that it is an opportunity to pivot and rethink, what do people want? What do we really stand for, whether you're a restaurant or a hotel? What kind of trends or responses are you seeing in the travel industry right now? What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Well, I think the word pivot is the key word. I've been just blown away by how clever some of the pivots have been, and the trends I'm seeing in travel. And just on the seminars I'm sitting in on and just with other experts and travel professionals, is that they're actually getting more bookings than they thought they were going to get. So everyone's reporting higher numbers. Now, that doesn't mean they're the numbers they had back in early March, but Delta thought that their number would go up 10%, and they're getting closer to 30%. So numbers are going up in the right direction. And I do think everyone's feeling that I would say I'm an optimistic pragmatist. Okay. I mean, the reality is that, the virus is out there, but I think people are asking not just, should I travel? It's how I can travel and when I can travel. Everyone, and I ask every person I see, the doctor, the checkout person at the grocery store, would you get on a plane? Where would you go? Because I'm curious as a journalist, what are people thinking? And I've never had anyone say, oh, no way. They all say, yes, I'm ready to go somewhere. Maybe I'm going to drive. I don't know. I might get on a flight. I mean, there's a lot of maybe about flying, but I think the trends are going the right direction. I think that, we've all kind of been sort of saturated in that go travel thing. I mean, it's been that way for a while. So I think people want to get back to it, and they're just trying to figure out how.
With working from anywhere, do you think train travel might come back?
Oh, that's a curious. No one's talked about that. No one's talked about that, in fact. And they talk about car just because that's the obvious.
Then you're driving. But if you could be on a train and still working.
And that was the beauty of flying. Was I loved flying because I could plug in my earbuds. Someone brought me a cocktail, and I just had to watch movies or work on my computer, and they brought my food to me, and I loved it. I didn't have to think about anything but me. And that's same with train travel. So it would be great to see that kind of be the new form. It would be wonderful.
It'd be a great pivot for someone to put a couple of really cars that are designed for that.
Yeah. Definitely. Or, hotels could take over a train, and, like we've got the Belmont trains, which I would, just love to get on one of those, but there's nothing in the United States like that.
It'd be great. It's a huge opportunity for someone. You've been impressed with some of the people, how they've pivoted. Who comes to mind? What are some of the stories?
For instance, like Jordan Winery, the restrictions in California are really tough. And so they still can't open the winery, but they were allowing people to hike. So if you have acreage, you could go hike. That was fine. So Jordan quickly said, oh, we're going to have the picnic hike. So you come to the Jordan Winery. We sell you wine and a picnic. We can't pour anything for you. We can't pour you a taste, but we could sell you this package. And then we'll take you on a guided hike of our Jordan Winery, socially distant. They sold out in the first, she said, 48 hours, we sold out. So the clamor for it. Yeah. So brilliant, right? That's just brilliant. And then when they're ready to open, the California government saying, you have to be outside for your tasting. So they're creating their outdoor, they're really actually building out all their outdoor spaces. And they've decided now is the time to renovate the inside of the winery. So they just this is how it's going to be. Everything's outside. We're going to make it work. And I saw a restaurateur. I don't remember what city it was in, but she put up clear shower curtains between each table.
I saw that.
I was like, that's smart. I mean, it's just, it's kind of kooky, but hey, all right, that's okay. That's clever. Then you don't have to spread those tables out. You can see your usual dining room. It's just you have, And so I was like, oh, that's really smart. And then the wine delivery has just been wineries that have been able to get their wines out there, because delivery of alcohol has been off the charts. And they have quickly figured out, okay, so we have to get all our wine into the warehouse now, and we need to stagger deliveries and one driver per truck. And so how can we do this? And it's just, the pivoting has been really extraordinary. That's so American to me. That's just the hustle and the sort of the creative thinking and just willing to throw anything out there and see how it works. It's really neat to watch.
Mm-hmm. When you're back next, we have a wine shop that's opened since you've been here, just called The Wine Shop. But it's beautiful and wonderful wines. You'll completely enjoy it. And the guy who owns it really knows his stuff. But they, did a really nice, wine tasting business here and there. And so they're thinking about bringing back where you would have times, right? So you would come in and you would have your time, and that would be sort of, and, maybe you could wait outside, but that was sort of how they were thinking about doing it, because it's a really small shop, right? So how do you pivot and still give people an experience.
That's a smart idea, because people love that one-on-one time anyway. When it comes to wine, they really don't want to have to find you and get your attention. So that who knows, that might last. I mean, you have your special appointment.
Exactly. You charge a little bit of a premium. And I think, wine clubs are obviously, especially with the delivery, are really, really great. One of the things that we've seen, which I think is sort of interesting, sort of to the point about the work from home, we've seen like a huge influx in interest, whether that's calls or search or actual bookings of extended stays, which is really fascinating to me. And people looking for rentals at Serenbe are up, double, triple from last year. Are you hearing that from other hotels that, kind of have a little more of a destination type aspect? I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I actually am hearing that. And I know what comes to mind are the dude ranches out west. Several of them, they never closed because people said, we're driving, we're coming from, St. Louis, and we're going to stay the whole month and just put us up in a cabin. So I think the extended stay, especially as the economy started to sort of crack back open, and people feel like one of the anxieties was, if I get in my car, will I be able to find gas? Will there be a place open to eat? And so now you can kind of feel comfortable that there will be, and you want that drive to sort of fit a window of maybe one stop. So 6-hour drive, 7-hour drive. And we did it in the beginning of May. We packed everything in the car, brought the extra monitors. My son brought his dumbbells. Whatever. And we really literally brought the kitchen sink, but we just cruised down to Hilton Head and we just settled in, and it was amazing. It was just so special to be there with the frogs and the alligators and the birds. And, it was still locked up. There weren't restaurants to go to, but we worked and we got in our rhythm down there. And I think, my neighbors started hearing about what we did, and then they started booking a week. So people listen, we're not going back to work anytime soon. So if that laptop can fit in your car, then, why not just take this experience somewhere where you have a view, or you have a walking path, or something just that changes this up a little bit.
And this is happening all over. Everyone I talk to is said that, second homes are all occupied with the owners, and rentals in these places are almost impossible now because of that.
Yeah.
So how much do you think will change? I see where a lot of your tech people now have decided that you can work from home. I think Facebook just said that's it. This is going to be a forever. And that's going to change where, people, second homes where they just had to go visit, suddenly now they can actually work out of there. But
I totally agree. I think that I have a friend who's an accountant with Coke, and they just said, you know what, we're not even going to think about coming back till November. Maybe we never come back. And that's, I think more and more conversations are happening that way. My sister is a partner in a global law firm, and she said, I don't ever need to go back to my office. I don't need to get on the L and do that. So, that is, I think, going to be one of the tectonic shifts. And I think it was sort of leaning that way, but habits are habits, and I need the FaceTime or whatever. And I think that when this is all said and done, if people start pulling back and looking at it and thinking, well, by not going to work, I saved hours in traffic. I saved carbon emissions because I'm not in my car. I'm more with my family. I'm more connected to my community that I live in. There's a lot of value in, working from home in a reasonable way, and then having that quality time with your work. Maybe you get together for a drink somewhere, or you go play golf, or, you just meet up somehow. You do need that social interaction with your colleagues, but I think everyone's discovered that you can get it. You don't have to be in the office for it. So I think the work from home or work from anywhere is definitely going to be a new part of our world after COVID.
And what we're hearing is employers, they were afraid people wouldn't be as productive, and they're finding they're all more productive. And that's, I think, going to be the real turn.
Yeah. And don't you wonder why? I mean, I've worked from home my whole life. I've never had, except when I taught school. Then that's the only thing you can't do really from home. But there is, are you more productive because you're not in traffic, or because I've actually wondered about that. Like, what is it that's making people more productive? And I'm not sure. I haven't really asked that question a lot, but it's true. It's across the board true. They're getting more done in less time.
Well, you have more time because you're not spending the time transporting yourself from one place to another, and chances are people are in a better mood.
Yeah, they're not as aggravated.
I found back in the restaurant days, our accounting department, that it didn't matter. And we were having trouble getting reports out by the time Friday afternoon came. And so we finally said, if you get it done by the time you leave Thursday, you can have Friday off.
Smart.
Everybody got the reports done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just the mood you're in and your goal. So if you're home, you can squeeze it all into a fewer hours and have extra time. Where in the office, you can do that.
Which I guess I've known that forever. I know how much I have to get done and what time I need to get it done in. And, in between I can walk the dog or, go play tennis or, do whatever.
Yeah. Somebody, I don't know if I read it or where I saw it, but it's like, are you working from home or are you living in your office? I was like, oh, I don't know about that.
Well, that's the new trend. I think I just sent you a note on it, Monica, is the neighborhood workspace. So you can walk out your front door down the street and have, that office space if you need it, whether it's a controlled phone booth or some of the office amenities, but you're not having to get in the car.
I think that's a great point, that the sort of co-working spaces or the WeWorks obviously are going to be pretty upended, but maybe it will be, they're still going to need those spaces. But what are they going to look like? And are they going to be as big, right? Because there's a lot of concern about that real estate. Do we need it? And the access.
And people are getting addicted to not having to get in the car. So if you could do it within walking distance.
Yeah.
No, I drove up to Atlanta the other day to take care of something, and I thought, God.
And that's not really even traffic. It's just not bad.
There was no traffic. It only took me like 35 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was just a funny, the up and the back and the few errands I had to do. I've just been walking here, but there were a couple things I just couldn't get done. And I thought, wow, that was kind of a time sink, all of that stuff. I wonder if I could have had all of that delivered or somehow planned better so I didn't have to make that drive. It is really reshifting how I'm thinking about how time is utilized.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're seeing, which is maybe slightly less of the travel, but I think it could affect it, is, where people are living, right? Again, the work from home is driving, like, not only can you go take an extended stay or go to Hilton Head for a month or Serenbe, you can live anywhere. So if you always wanted to live near your parents or you want to live in a less expensive neighborhood, are you hearing about that? I've read a bunch of stuff where people are moving to rural communities, and I think people will recognize pretty quickly that isolation is not what they're really looking for. They think they want it, but it's really that access to nature. Are you seeing that? Or, is anybody talking about that from?
I think that's been happening, like you said, for some time, and I haven't heard it being discussed so much at the moment. But I think it's sort of happening without us knowing it. I hear a lot of journalists I'm friends with leaving New York. They're just like, you know what, I'm going to Connecticut, or I'm in Phoenix, or I've just left the city and I'm going to sublet my place. And I think what's happened and has been happening for some time, for several years, is that big cities, everybody was going there for the jobs. They became untenably expensive. And so everyone said, I can't afford to live here and have a family. This isn't life. So they've been trying to find a way out to go back to rural communities, because I do think everything got out of balance. The rural communities were getting gutted and the cities were just jammed, and it was sad to see. And I think this particular pandemic will bring balance back. That's my hope, so that these people who have been in the cities can see this job's doable from anywhere. I'm going to move to a smaller town outside of New York, and I'm going to do it from there. And I'm going to have a yard, and I'm going to raise my children, and I'll be able to afford it. So I think this is sort of almost that kick out the door that some of us needed, to just say, you know what, it's time. And I like the Serenbes of the world should hopefully benefit from that, because people are ultimately always looking for their little space to live with their family, but they want community. And I think big city was the only community we had for a while, and it got too expensive. And now it's suddenly, that charming little town that I can get this cute little home in, and then 5 other friends move. And I do think it will have the effect of reshaping the rural communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that we had already, we had always hoped, because Chat Hills, the city that Serenbe sits in, is sort of 40,000 acres, that there is this vision of sort of really bringing back an agrarian economy that's already happening. And one of the big things that I don't know if we talked to you about, that the Rodale Institute out of Pennsylvania is opening a Southeastern Regional Research Center. This fall will kind of be launched, but they've hired a farmer and a scientist, and they're going to do side-by-side trials. And, hopefully that will continue to grow the interest and bring people out to get involved. Maybe people who are pivoting out of a job that they maybe were on the verge of leaving, they can come do something, in a rural setting and more of a small town, know your neighbor kind of way, which will be interesting to see how those trends play out.
And I think people want to feel like intellectual stimulation will be there when they, that somehow you get sort of addicted to the idea that it can only be in a city. But, college towns are some of the best, like Chapel Hill, Athens. They're great, cool towns, really dynamic and energetic. And I think that can happen, like with the Rodale Institute. And so, once that starts to go along with the people, then, it's going to be reshaping.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I was curious about is, because we talked a little bit about what you're seeing in sort of trends and how people have pivoted, but tell me what do you see? What does the recovery look like over the next sort of 6 to 24 months? I mean, we know that we're not going to suddenly at Serenbe be back in the, occupancy in the 80% range. We'll be happy. I don't know if we'll be happy, but, we're trying to figure out how do you live at the 40 to 50%, knowing that, maybe travel doesn't come back as quickly. I mean, we hope that it will, but what are you seeing? What do you think is going to come back first?
Yeah.
Where are going to be the challenges?
I think it's the three S's, the three things that are on everyone's mind is space. Where can I go where I'll have space? Is it safe to get there, safe when I'm there? And is it sanitized? So I think the third one, sanitized goes with safe, but we've probably all experienced that sort of moment where you go into one shop to get something and no one's wearing a mask and they don't seem to care. And you say, well, I'm not going to go back there for a while. And so you go to this store that has their protocols in place and they're ironclad, and already stores in Atlanta are getting reputations for one way or the other. So most of the top hotel chains have partnered with, Johns Hopkins or Emory or Mayo Clinic, and they have consultants on hand to literally go through the property and identify, touch points that would need to be the safest of all. I know that some of these properties have hygiene concierges. So I think that's really something that all these properties have taken to heart. And then the space part is really where I think it will start first. People are going to go to places where they can spread out. The big beach at Hilton Head, the mountains in Colorado. Where can I hike and bike and still feel like I got away and had a vacation, are number one. And I think certainly drive times are also part of that. By car, international, unfortunately, until the 14-day quarantine restrictions are lifted and the borders are open, I'd get on a plane tomorrow and go to France. I would have no qualms about it, but I can't. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know how international will unfold because it really depends on the governments that run those nations. So that's hard. That's a tough crystal ball to see, but everyone I talk to wants to go somewhere, wants to get out of town, and is looking for that place that they could go with their family, or maybe another multi-family travel to, rent a villa and stay somewhere on the beach or in the forest or by the lake. I think will be that big hot ticket this summer. And some people will just stay the whole summer and make it their vacation / work from home. I also think, though, I wouldn't rule out the cities, because how appealing is it to think you can go to New York City and have all those attractions line free? Like really probably, yeah. I mean, you don't have to queue up for the Empire State Building. The Metropolitan you can wander the halls and look at the art without, crowds of people just jamming every painting you want to see. Like that's very appealing to me. And it goes to each institution's skill at handling the distancing and the sanitizing. And so I think I wouldn't rule it out. But right now, everyone's talking about, everyone wants to go somewhere. They just are kind of sorting out how and when. And June 1st seems to be a big opening date for a lot of hotel properties. And I know Vail Resorts, my son works for them. They're opening hotels June 1st, and they're hoping the lifts will open July 1st. So, they're still planning on getting the season in. And, gosh, if you could think, well, what's a safe, socially distant, spacious place? The Rocky Mountains would be cool. Or, the Grand Canyon. It's time to see your national parks. I think that's, camping, all that stuff. Those almost like back to the 50s, get the family in the car and let's go somewhere and explore America. I feel like that's a kind of it is very retro. It's going to be a retro sort of summer vacation this year.
I bet RVs are going to be in high demand.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. No summer camps, everybody's busyness has been put on hold. So we're all looking for what that solution is going to be to our normal busyness.
We are reopening our summer camp here with all the guidelines.
Good. Yeah, I think you can do it within reason. I think not everything, and don't ever rule out, like we've learned so much about this virus in the last 9 weeks. I'm very curious to know what the next 9 weeks show us. I just, the progress and intelligence about it has been remarkable. So, right now, what I'm saying now, I didn't think I would be saying 4 weeks ago. I just, it's important to read data-driven science articles and make your decisions. And, the CDC is the guiding light, and almost everybody is following their guidelines. So, if you have your science and your family in hand, go for it.
Yeah, definitely. I know, Steve, you had been talking to somebody over at Intercontinental Group, and they were saying that the luxury side locally, they kind of felt like would come back first. Do you remember that conversation, Steve?
Yeah, they're saying very much the same thing. And this was some of the Six Senses people, and they had just Six Senses under Intercontinental. They have 16 hotels that they closed worldwide. And 2 weeks ago, they opened Vietnam. It was their first. And they were totally booked, 100% booked. And the difference is most of it are a much, much higher percent of domestic, both expats and people that live there than they were normal to. So I think this reinforces where people are going to travel, but it's going to be domestic travel everywhere. And they said that I think we all see the convention business is what's going to be some of the slowest to come back. And so that's your bigger mid-range hotels that have lived on convention business. Mm-hmm. So the destination will come back, and that'll be in the luxury market.
Yeah, events are going to be hurting for a while. That's an unfortunate. There's really nothing you can do to make an event a safe experience right now.
Well, and that triggers a lot because New York. Let's take as the example. Someone, a 30-year-old New Yorker, said, I'm leaving and I'm not sure when I'll go back because part of why I'm here and putting up with what I do is the energy that I just feel. And with everything closed, the energy's not there. So what I'm there for. Yeah. And you look at many of these small restaurants can't survive on 50% allowed occupancy. And then if you take theater away and all these things that bring people out for that early seating and late seating, if that's all gone for a few years, it's prediction that as many as 50% of the operations may go under through this whole thing.
Yeah.
There's going to be changes in our urban centers.
It's a scary scenario. Yeah. And no one moves to New York to live in their little tiny apartment. Like that's the whole point. You ignore your apartment and you're out in the city all the time. That's the value of being there. Right. So I agree with that completely. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add or tell us what you're working on right now? I love you were riffing on like great headlines for summer retro travel, but tell me what those were great. I know you got to write a story now. What are you working on right now, and anything you want to share?
I'm working on actually rediscovering your backyard. So safe, socially distant travel. I'm actually doing, a lot of the stuff I do for Forbes is high end net worth, private yachts, super yachts. Those are really fun to look at pictures of, by the way. So I've been just like everyone, I'm such a stalker when it comes to the yachts, but that's been a fun story to write because their bookings are through the roof. If you want a private vacation with your family and you have $1 million a day to spend, well, book a super yacht. Same with private jet travel. That'll be huge. I think that's, a lot of families are sharing jets and just going somewhere together. So those were fun stories to write. I can just lust after that lifestyle. And then still always focused on, I always like to just keep talking about what's happening in the wine world and, how what the harvest is like, what the winemaking's like, how things are going. Life is still happening. So it's telling stories and how are you coping? How have you handled it? It's been interesting to see the different experiences everyone has had with this based on where they live and how their life is. And so I've enjoyed that. So those are the chief headlines at the moment.
And then you're off to Hilton Head in a couple of weeks.
And then we go to Hilton Head. Yeah. Same. Just bring the laptop and head back down and get the bike and, ride around and walk the dog, play some tennis, walk on the beach. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think the slowing down is probably great for everybody, just to reconsider what's important.
Yes. And I have to say, I've seen more kids in my neighborhood on a bike than I've ever seen since I've lived here. Like children I've never even knew lived here. And what I will tell you is, and they're busy, like school's over. So they're having bike races by my front door all the time. None of them look miserable. They're not like, oh darn, camp is canceled and baseball's canceled, and they're not really unhappy about it. They're fine. They're figuring it out. They're flipping rocks and finding bugs, and they're making forts in the front yard. I'm just delighted when I walk around the neighborhood and I see all the crazy kid stuff going on. I remember that growing up, but that's because my dad drove us out to the sticks, and it was like my sister and my brother, and we had to figure it out. But we had a great time growing up that way, and I feel this has been a great gift to all of us to just really unpack what matters the most. And what was sort of, extra and frosting on top, or was it really necessary? And, it's been an unfortunate, rough time for so many people. And I just hope that part of it changes. But it has, the silver lining has been that opportunity to just really look at how you're living your life every day and what really brings value to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Katie. This has been absolutely wonderful, and it's delight to see you again.
Yeah, I know. It's been
definitely great. We'll have to get you down, introduce you to the wine proprietor, because
I would love to meet the wine proprietor. I would love it. Good. And it's been such a delight to talk to you and just hear what's going on. And I just, Serenbe is always in my back pocket. Maybe I'll be coming for my next extended stay.
That's right. Love
it. Yeah, we'd love to have you.
It's a shorter drive than Hilton Head.
It's very true. I don't even have to stop anywhere.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Bye.
There are two rubrics in building a city. You can follow the sprawl mentality, or you can preserve land while boosting economic development. Serenbe builds and designs to be both beautiful and environmentally sustainable. If you're a city planner, developer, landowner, or policymaker, there are common sense solutions you can take to build a biophilic-centered community. Attend the Nigran Placemaking Conference this fall to learn more. Details at nigranplacemaking.com. That's NYGRENPLACEMAKING.com. Thank you for listening to Serenbe Stories. New episodes are available on Mondays. Please rate and review the podcast, and make sure to email your questions for Steve Nygren to stories@serenbe.com. You may even get to hear them on the podcast. More details about episodes and guests are available on our website, serenbestories.com.